Hiya. If you are like me and use Letterboxd to the extent where it is an issue, then you have probably been anticipating Letterboxd Wrapped. If you don't know what that is, it's just where you see all your stats from the app for the year. Like you get to see your most watched actor, director, your 100th movie of that year if you watched that many, just how many movies you watched, how many hours, and your most watched day of that year. Just things like that. And Letterboxd users have been excited for it, and it was revealed early on in January. And I just want to talk about mine because some pretty interesting and surprising things were on there. So, in the entire 365 days of the year, I logged 387 films. Yes, I have never touched a woman in my life. How could you tell? Yeah, this is definitely my most watched year ever. Definitely higher than last year. I think last year was around 200 and something. I don't know, but this year is definitely higher, and that's mainly because I was actively trying to watch at least one film every day, and it typically was one film every day. And if I did miss a day, I'd typically try and watch two films like the next day, or at least a day soon, because I don't know, it's just become an addiction at this point. And if I miss a day, I have to compensate by watching more than one on another day. It's an issue, really. I should really fucking sort it out because I need to touch some grass, but that's the way it is. Who knows? Maybe this year will be the same. I've already watched more than I don't know how many. I've watched more movies this year so far than there are days that have gone by in this year so far. So this year's looking to be exactly the same. But do keep in mind that some of these films will be like short films. Like I rewatched all of the Wallace and Gromit short films, which were only around 30 minutes long, and there's like four of them. And I'm pretty sure I did watch a few other short films, ones that are even like only a few minutes long. So not all of them are feature length, but the majority of them are, and some of them are pretty long. So as you can see here, my most watched actor was Conrad Vernon, and my most watched director was Tim Burton. Now, this is the part of Letterboxd Wrapped that I am most excited about, especially this year. Last year it was kind of obvious because, I was pretty new to Letterboxd, so I was like watching all the beloved movies, all the popular ones. So my most watched director of 2022 was Quentin Tarantino, and my most watched actor was Robert De Niro. And it wasn't really much of a shock to me, but this year I was just watching anything that I could find, anything I had at least a mild interest in, instead of just going after all the film bro movies like I did in 2022. So I really didn't know what to expect from most watched actor and director. My guesses just kept changing throughout the year. At one point, I thought my most watched actor would be Emma Stone. Then at one point, I thought definitely Margot Robbie. And then nearer the end of the year, I thought maybe it's Bradley Cooper. I've been seeing him a lot in movies that year. And then right before Letterboxd Wrapped came out, my final prediction was Clint Eastwood. And not this fucker who I've never heard of in my entire life. I had to Google this guy, and it turns out he just voices a bunch of minor characters in different DreamWorks movies. Like, he voices Gingy in Shrek, and that's the only thing I can really name. I was very disappointed with this, but it's honestly not a surprise. I have committed to just watching and logging every single DreamWorks movie. And I've been on the grind in 2022, and this guy's in like half of the DreamWorks movies. So it does make sense, but I'm kind of annoyed because, yeah, I wanted someone interesting. Sorry, Conrad, I'm sure you're a nice guy, but no one knows who you are. With Most Watched Director, I didn't really have any predictions for it because I just really didn't have any idea. At one point, I guessed Martin Scorsese, but I haven't actually seen that many movies from him this year. Maybe only like 3 or 4. Well, I did rewatch one, so yeah, I guess it was a fair guess. But I couldn't really think of any others. But when I actually saw Tim Burton as my most watched director, it became very obvious. Like, I don't know why I didn't guess it. And Let me tell you, the main reason why I watched so many Tim Burton movies last year, I mean, I only watched like six, but it was more than any other director, so I'm just gonna say I watched a lot of him. The main reason I did that is because I was talking to an attractive girl, and she said she liked Tim Burton movies. So I just started watching them, and then maybe she'd fall in love with me for watching Tim Burton movies. Didn't work, but at least I had some fun watching Tim Burton movies. So yeah, that's the story. I did like Sweeney Todd and Corpse Bride. I'm not a huge fan of Mars Attacks, but yeah, he's okay. For most watch director, I'm not disappointed. I'm just surprised that I didn't guess it in the first place because it's actually super fucking obvious. So for most highly rated films of 2023, you've got a couple of very common movies here, Oppenheimer and Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse. Two very well-loved films from last year. Personally, Across the Spider-Verse is my favourite film of 2023, with Oppenheimer coming in at a close second. So nothing much to say there. But Attack on Titan, the final chapter special 2, I kind of forgot about this. I wasn't expecting it to show up here. And I didn't forget about it because I thought it was like a forgettable film or whatever. It's just that it wasn't really a film. Like, I've seen some people call it a TV movie due to its 90-minute length. But it really is just the final episode of a show, and it just happens to be very long. So at one point, I just considered not logging it on Letterboxd at all because I'd seen some reviews of it say that Letterboxd keep removing it, so I didn't see much point. But I did in the end, and now it's ended up on my highly rated 2023 films, which, is very interesting, and I do think it deserves that spot. I do, because it is really great. I don't understand why some people hate the Attack on Titan finale, but I digress. I think it would be more ideal if my Letterboxd Wrapped was just solely movies. I think it's just kind of odd that I have a television episode on here. But, if Attack on Titan wasn't on here, then it would probably be like Godzilla Minus One or Guardians of the Galaxy 3 or Girls of the Flower Moon or something, because Oppenheimer and Across the Spider-Verse were the only two movies from last year that I gave 5 stars. And those other films I just mentioned were 4.5 stars. I don't know how the system works. I don't know which movie they would have picked out of all those 4.5 star films. But yeah, if Attack on Titan wasn't there, it would have been one of those films because they were some really amazing movies. So the last things I want to touch on are my most watched theme and most watched nano genre. And the reason I want to show this is because I find it kind of funny how different the two are. Like, my most watched theme is gory, gruesome, and slasher horror. And my most watched nano genre is cartoon gag adventure. Just really jolly. And on the other hand, violent, death, pain, suffering. I just thought that was kind of funny. I didn't actually realize I'd watched that many horror movies. The cartoon gag adventure isn't too big of a surprise because, as I mentioned earlier in the video, I have watched a lot of DreamWorks movies, and a lot of DreamWorks movies consist of themes of gags and adventures. But, I never realized I watched that much slasher movies. I'm actually struggling to think of slasher movies I watched. I know I watched the original Friday the 13th for the first time, and I watched the recent Evil Dead. I watched Scream 5 and 6, but I can't think of many others. Whatever. Yeah, I just wanted to show that. So that's about all I wanted to talk about with my Letterboxd Wrapped. I know it wasn't like a big video, it was just sort of me casually yapping away about my stats on Letterboxd because it was something I was interested in. I don't know if anyone will even care about this video. Please let me know in the comments, because if I'm still making these mediocre videos next year, then I might talk about my Letterboxd Wrapped again. But that does depend on if people like this type of video. Maybe you all hate it, maybe you think it's boring, Or maybe you actually love it and want to see more. You're just dying for that content. Who knows? Please let me know. But I know none of you leave comments. You're all assholes. You all just use me for content. You don't actually want to make friends or interact. Bitches. Anyway, see you later.